Did I just spend 12.5 hours giving my OC a fantasy makeover? Yes. Yes, I did. Howdy howdy, my name's Toast, and this is my OC Kitty, or at least the old version of her from my comics Xpen Lounge, a slice of life romance following the lives of 4 co-workers who, you guessed it, work at a host club and lounge. Or at least that was the story until I decided to gut the entire thing and turn it into a romantasy mystery with some Eldritch theming. Yeah. Don't worry though, the host club aspect is still around, so, I didn't get the whole thing. The joys of being an artist, it's not like I was 80 pages fully drawn into that version anyway, Now you may be asking yourself, Toast, why would you do this to yourself? And to answer that, we need to take a little stroll through memory lane. Basically, over the last 2 years, I got really into Dungeons & Dragons and realized how much I love fantasy and have no interest in writing contemporary stuff, so why not? It's never too late to change something if you're not feeling it. Obviously, if I'm making the change from contemporary to fantasy, then I gotta redesign all my OCs, and that's just like the cherry on top, except for the fact that cherry sucks, so it's more like a strawberry on top, so it's a superior fruit. Either way, it's a win-win situation all around for me. Let's get into the art. I knew, going into this, about 2 things I wanted to accomplish with the design. 1, that I needed at least 2 outfits for her, a casual one and a work uniform, and 2, that she had to be a cat girl, because, obviously. How well did I achieve those things, you ask? Well, cat girl was easy enough. Just slap some ears and a tail on her, and you're good. And if you're an art lover like myself, it might be pretty obvious that I was heavily inspired by Yek Yours and how I drew them. Just a little bit of practice for a future video. Wink, wink. As for the outfits, well, I aimed for 2 and ended up with a lot more than that. It was not my intention to create an entire wardrobe for her, but here we are. And now do I feel the need to do an equal amount for the rest of my OCs? Yes. Yes, I do. Now, because I ended up doing so many, girl, we ain't got time to chat about each one individually. So, instead, I'm going to talk about the basis behind the collective of fits, starting off from the beginning with my inspiration. It took me a hot minute of scrolling on Pinterest to really nail down what I wanted for her. The contemporary version of her is very dark academia, cool girl, grunge vibes. And for some reason, those didn't translate well for me for a fantasy version of her. And maybe that's because my vision of her character has changed. I'm not sure. But whatever the reason, when I was looking at those inspirations, it just wasn't hitting right. What did hit, though, was this very 70s-esque dress. I don't actually know if it's from the 70s, but that's the vibe I was getting. I saw that, and immediately something clicked in my brain and went, this is the style for her. So you'll see throughout these designs that the silhouette of the main body piece, whether it be a dress or a 2-piece set, is very similar. I did this with other pieces of her outfit as well, by basically exclusively giving her these long poofy sleeves, and at one point I started giving her the exact same boots for all of her outfits. Was this a genius ploy by me, or did I just want to stop drawing shoes? The answer was yes. See, if I want to use multiple outfits throughout the comic for every character, that's all fine and dandy, but by keeping the same / similar silhouettes for each OC, it's gonna make them infinitely more recognizable at a glance. And it means that you'd be able to tell who a character was without having to show their face. Is it slightly unrealistic for someone to only have outfits that share one silhouette? Maybe, but quite frankly, I don't care. It's also unrealistic for a cat girl to exist. So, it is what it is. Staying in the slightly unrealistic realm for a little longer, we have Kitty's color palette, which I'm sure you can tell so far has consisted of the same colors throughout all of her outfits. Now, as someone who wears all black, this isn't that far from reality, minus the fact that all of her blacks are the same shade. If only. Since my comic will most likely be in color, keeping the color schemes of each character consistent will also help keep them quickly recognizable. Fun fact about Kitty's color palette, when I originally created her, purple was not in her color scheme whatsoever. But then, during Art Fight a couple of years ago, a friend of mine attacked me and did my favorite drawing of Kitty ever to exist, where they gave her purple eyeshadow. And ever since then, purple has been one of her main colors, which incidentally came in pretty handy in regards to another design aspect that I had in mind for Kitty. Now, before I can truly get into what that is, we're gonna need a little bit of background on the locale of where this story takes place. When I said I got really into D&D over the past 2 years, I meant that, not only as a player, but also as a DM. I've been DMing for almost a year and a half now, and in true creative fashion, I did homebrew the entire world my players are in, and I may also incidentally be using it as the setting for this comic and potentially all future comics of mine, but that's besides the point. The point is I know an obscene amount of information about the setting of Slots. Short rundown for you all so I don't exposition you out. The country of Elysia is the fashion capital of the world. The main fashions there are light, flowy clothes, lots of ruffles and lace, with pale pastels as the main colors. Elysia is also home to a gothic subculture, which has originated over the recent rise in racism towards the Kinku race over some eldritch cult actions that seem to be tied to the Shadowfell. The Shadowfell, in my world, is eldritch, and, fun fact, Kinku are from there, which is not something I knew before coming up with all this lore. Either way, it's not known who is causing these eldritch rituals to happen. People are just assuming it's the Kinku, and lots of people who aren't assuming that have started to dress up in skin-tight clothing that's, dark colors, adorned in feathers, and clad in the misuse of sewing supplies, like using scissors as hairpins, to stand with the Kinku and against the people who are blaming them without due process. Now, you're probably wondering 2 questions. Does this have plot relevance to Slots, and what does this have to do with Kitty? Question 1. Yes and no. Slots is investigating a small piece of that puzzle, but the main story will be for my players in Campaign 2 when we get there. I like the idea of Slots being a way for my players to get familiarized with the region and themes of the next story. Don't worry though, the plot of Slots itself is completely standalone and you won't need any campaign info to understand it. Question 2. What does this have to do with Kitty? Well, Kitty, in her heart, is an accepting, forgiving, and trusting person. So on one hand, Kitty would absolutely stand with the Kinku, hence the darker colors of her color palette. And the purple helps lean into a more whimsigoth vibe for her. On the other hand, part of Kitty's backstory revolves around something eldritch happening to her, and so rightfully she is frightened of anything in regards to it, hence the brighter colors of her palette. So it's like she's stuck between worlds and doesn't quite know which side to lean towards. Staying in the realm of Kitty's backstory, let's talk about her face. You may have noticed that she wears really heavy makeup and also has pretty big hair, and neither of those things are because she's half goth. Kitty grew up on a farmstead with just her father, and as much as he loved his daughter, he had no idea how to raise one, and was a little bit of an irresponsible parent. Seeing as he had no one to watch her while he was away, he would simply bring Kitty with him when he went to bars, and like the dive kind. So all the women at these bars were very Dolly Parton, if you will. Heavy makeup, big hair, tight clothes. And so that influenced what Kitty saw as femininity, and is the reason she styles herself the way she does today. Also, those women were totally all over her, taking care of her and teaching her makeup and stuff. Real cute type shit, So collectively, those kinds of women were mother figures towards her, which is probably one of the reasons why she's so comfortable working at a host club like Slots. That lifestyle isn't weird or taboo to her, it's just normal. Now, I haven't really spoken about her work outfit, and to be honest, that's because there's just not a lot to talk about. I kind of just took the aspects of her contemporary fit and then melded them with some of the themes I liked in the fantasy fit, and that's it. Now, to shift gears for a moment and talk about the actual artwork itself, I recently watched a video from Prickly Alpaca where they created character sheets for their OCs, and so, of course, on top of all the outfits I did, I had the brilliant idea that I too should create a ref sheet for Kitty, since I literally never create them for any of my OCs, and hey, it might be useful to have for a comic character. How often will this actually get used? I don't know, but hey, it'll be useful for Art Fight next year, if nothing else. For the ref sheet, I decided to include 2 full body illustrations of Kitty, one in her work outfit and one in my personal favorite of the casual outfits. I wanted to show off her personality some in this reference sheet as well, which is why I opted for a more interesting pose than I had been doing for the clothing designs. I also chose not to do a back view of her, partially because I'm lazy, and partially because I think that I should probably do an official full body turnaround of at least her work uniform, and that would simply take up way too much space on this sheet, as I was also trying to include the sketches of her other outfits. I did end up doing a turnaround of her face though, as I am very well known to have trouble drawing the same face twice. If only I had same face syndrome, you know? So, hopefully, having that as a reference can help me stay more consistent in the future. I have already used it once as a ref so far, so stick around to the end to see that. And you'll notice for the turnaround, I only did the front, the 3/4, and the side view, but I do end up including the back view of her head as well. I just do that next to her full body outfits to showcase that her hair is styled differently in her casual look compared to her work look. Those bar ladies really said go big or go home when it comes to hair, so she's got those curls pinned up with far too many bobby pins and whatever fantasy hairspray is. I probably should have also included like a back 3/4 view, but it is what it is. I'll do it in the turnaround. Speaking of fantasy though, I guess I never really talked about the vibes of the world we're in. Eos, the name of my homebrew world, is a very high fantasy, historically inspired world. You know, and having said that, there is no misogyny, at least within the overall cultures of the world, so women are not bound to head coverings or long, shapeless clothes. That's simply not an interest of mine, as I find I like being inspired by lots of eras throughout history, and I want characters to be able to wear pretty much whatever without it affecting them plot-wise. There's also no racism or homophobia, because there's too much of that in real life already. There is speciesism though, as I mentioned earlier with the Kenku, and also classism, because, you know, we gotta have some conflict and evilness throughout the world, otherwise, where's the spice and potential subplots? So, like, if you were wondering why Kitty's outfits were so quote-unquote revealing, that's why, because it doesn't matter. She might get a few weird looks, but that's mainly because her fashion style is less of the norm in this region. You know, I say that, but you know damn well, some fashion designer is looking at the goth subculture and creating watered-down designs to sell to boutiques in other countries. Case in point, a player character in our current campaign is a pastel goth in a completely different country that's on the same continent. Did I create all of this lore after that character was already established in a pastel goth? Yes. Am I retroactively saying that's why she's pastel goth? Also, yes. Though, to be fair, at this point she is turning more goth, but that's more so to do with the fact that her father is Asmodeus. None of this has anything to do with Kitty. I apologize. I just love rambling about my world lore, and, you know, if you like it, don't worry, I have videos planned for that, so be sure to stick around. You know, and I mean, if you made it this far, past all of the unrelated ranting, then I have got a little surprise for you, and by surprise I mean something that I promised early in the video, which is this little sketch that I did of Kitty. Very cute. I like the way it turned out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course follow me over on other socials to keep up with my whereabouts. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye! Why is there a 0 at the end of my script?